This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
But I guarantee you I will get hurt again. It's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. But now I can walk in with a different perspective and have a different experience when I walk through the door of love because I trust myself to be able to navigate it. I know that I will be whole. I know that I will be a whole ass human being who is made of love already. And that I know I trust my own resilience because that is the key. The trust and the resilience is key. You're listening to Make Some Noise Podcast, episode number 665.
Welcome to Make Some Noise Podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. We are on lesson 6 of the 10-part Coming Home to Yourself series that I'm doing leading up to my 50th birthday, which is happening in the middle of April. And this one is about love, not romantic love, but love in general. I also, before we get started, do you remember that book I wrote, How to Stop Feeling Like Shit? Do you remember that one? You might have read it. I am finally, it's long overdue, but I'm going to run a coaching program around that book. It's coming soon. AndreaOwen.com/habits if you want to be the first to know about when I open registration shortly. And there's going to be bonuses for those people who are on that list, as well as special pricing for very limited time. So you want to make sure that you're on there if you're thinking that you might want to join us. Again, it is a group coaching program around the book that's been translated into 20 languages, which still shocks me. My book, How to Stop Feeling Like Shit. So AndreaOwen.com/habits. Also, as usual, there is a worksheet that goes with this podcast episode. If you go to the show notes or AndreaOwen.com/665, you can download it. And I'm also doing a book giveaway, as I'm doing every week. I'm at Hey Andrea Owen on Instagram to look for the most recent post on this episode, and you'll see the instructions on how to enter to win a personalized signed copy of one of my books. All right, let's get into it. So this episode I've broken down into 5 parts. I've done my best to organize my thoughts around this because this is probably the most spiritual of all of the lessons that I'm bringing you. And it might feel like it's a bit of a departure from what I usually teach. However, the way I see it is that it's a sort of natural evolution or culmination of everything that I teach. This is where I've landed. And I see that for a decent amount of experts that I follow. I'm like, oh, I get it. I'm here. I've arrived at this place that I've seen other people get to. And it's amazing. It honestly is amazing. And that's why I've called this series Coming Home to Yourself. And so I'm going to just jump right in. And I'm going to ask you to go on a little walk with me. We're going to go in a circle, but broken this down into kind of 5 parts. And the first part is I'm going to sort of set the stage. And this stage, I think, is very common. The stage that I'm about to set for you, I don't think I'm the only one who has been here. Where we're going with this is I'm going to explain to you how I have lived most of my life around love from a place of fear. And where I have ended up is a place of acceptance and a place of trust. And I'm going to tell you how I got there. All right. So the stages is this. I left my marriage, my second marriage, in 2023. And when that happened, I knew that I had some healing to do, not just from my marriage, but just in general. In general, I looked back on my life and realized that, I have two marriages that didn't work out, and they were long relationships. So there was a lot to learn there. And also there were some other relationships that were not romantic relationships, that were kind of going sideways. And so I knew that, hi, I'm the problem, it's me, that there was part of me that needed to do some healing or new perspectives or something. I thought that my hesitation back then, because I was also like, no new relationships for a hot minute. I thought that on the surface that my hesitation around love, and not just presently, not just in 2023, even before that, I thought my hesitation was about being brokenhearted, period. As I found out, it ran a lot deeper than that. And so my history, maybe like yours, I tended to blame past partners for not being able to love me the way that I wanted to be loved. And I chalked that up to, maybe I just don't pick the right people. Maybe I'm attracting the wrong people, which I do think that has been the case. And also I blamed myself, believed that something about me needed to change, like my personality. Do I need to change how I show up in relationships? Like, yes, that part of that. I needed to work out some kinks about my own behavior and things like that. But I thought that those were like the two main things, right? That was it. If I can just attract and find the right person, as well as be the person that I needed to be in a relationship, then that was it. And again, both of those things are true, but it was more than that. And so I also want to say this before I continue. I think many of us tend to create worst case scenarios in our mind, right? Anxiety, anxious attachment style. We create worst case scenarios because of past hurts, because of our history, because we know what it feels like to have things not work out. And then we tend to repeat those narratives over and over again. And then you can kind of guess what happens. We end up repeating behaviors. And on the surface, this is an important thing I'm going to say, because I'm going to revisit this. On the surface, we consciously think that we have accepted everything that's happened to us, right? Like, of course I've accepted what's happened to me. It happened. I had to accept it because I have moved on. I'm not trying to get that person back in my life. I've maybe made amends with them or whatever, that we can kind of check off the boxes of thinking that we have accepted difficult things that have happened to us. In this case, love that didn't work out. What I realized is that I had unconscious, what I'm calling unconscious resistance. And trust me, I had worked on forgiving. I had moved on. I still, though, had parts of myself. And if you want to look at this from an internal family systems lens, also known as IFS, where we have parts of ourselves that we've sort of exiled, I still had parts of me that were clinging to what could have been. And this is not necessarily that I wanted to still be in those other relationships, but there was a part of me that was still like, well, what if that could have happened? Well, what if that could have been different? So I had this unconscious resistance. Okay. Let's keep going on this walk, because this is the second part. That unconscious resistance was directly related to underlying hurt and fear. And I'm going to tell you what I realized. The reason was I was still holding on. Again, these parts of me that were sort of clinging to what could have been. Have you ever had a relationship that didn't work out and you said, I feel like there's unfinished business, but I don't know what it is? I think this is where we say, I never got closure. I wish I could have gotten closure. The way I described that is, I would say, I feel like I can't land the plane. And it was so odd to me. And I would talk to my therapist about this. I would say, why do I still feel stuck here? This is bonkers. I by no means even want to be in the same room with these people that I feel like I have unfinished business with. What is happening? I was not trying to get those relationships back. And so to me, I looked at it as like, if I have accepted this, that this relationship is over, why did I still feel stuck? And so that's where the healing really started. And two things that have been truly instrumental are, as I mentioned, IFS, Internal Family Systems. I will put that link into the show notes for that book, as well as ketamine therapy. And by the way, I am in the works to release more of my psychedelic therapy podcast episodes. That's on a special private podcast feed. I'll pop that link in the show notes too. It's not here on my regular podcast feed. I also want to say quickly in this PS, I don't think that psychedelic therapy is for everyone for various reasons. I do think that you can come to these massive places of healing like I have through other modalities like breath work, through meditation, through certain somatic therapies. Psychedelics can act like a fast track here because they allow us to tap into our subconscious, which is what I wanted. So that's why I went that route. Okay, moving on. So IFS and ketamine therapy showed me that I had this unconscious resistance happening. What I realized, and I talk about this further in those particular podcast episodes that I just mentioned, I realized there was a part of me, not my conscious self, but there was a stuck, traumatized part of me that was still looking for an alternative ending. Somewhere inside, I was still asking myself, what could I have done differently? What could have happened differently? There was a part of me that was not accepting what had happened, even though I had forgiven my past partners. Deep down, I was still searching for a solution to a problem that was long in my past. Long in my past. And I think that this can happen for even traumatic events that don't involve a romantic partner. But I wasn't just carrying it around in my mind. I felt it in my body, the way I tensed up about love, the way that I had a really difficult time talking about certain parts that are involved in, a strong romantic relationship, and the way I braced myself for impact, even in safe, loving moments. This wasn't just about romantic love. This was my relationships with love in general, with my family, in my friendships, and most importantly, my love for myself. So when we take a quick ad break, when we get back, I'm going to talk more about landing the plane and the ketamine therapy I had that had me come to these big breakthroughs. So we'll be right back. I want to take a minute to talk about something I've struggled with, my relationship with food and my body. In my 20s, I battled an eating disorder for years, and finding the right treatment was frustrating. One of the biggest barriers was that insurance wouldn't cover it just because I was still having my period. I had to navigate so much of it on my own, and I don't want that for anyone else. Eating disorders are so common, yet we don't talk about them enough. That's why I'm excited to introduce you to Equip, a virtual evidence-based eating disorder treatment program that helps you recover at home. No putting your life on hold, whether it's work, family, or the things that bring you joy. Equip gives you a full care team, a therapist, dietitian, medical provider, and even a mentor who's been through recovery. They treat people of all ages, all types of eating disorders, and best of all, is covered by insurance and has no wait list. If you or someone you love is struggling, don't wait. You deserve help. Get a free consultation with Equip today because healing is possible and you don't have to do it alone. Visit equip.health/noise to learn more about Equip's virtual accessible eating disorder treatment. That's equip.health/noise. Let's talk about perimenopause and menopause. If you've been feeling like your body's betraying you, you're not alone and you don't have to suffer through it. That's where MIDI Health comes in. MIDI connects you with expert clinicians who actually understand women's midlife health. There's no guesswork, no dismissing your symptoms, just real science-backed solutions to help you feel like yourself again. They treat things like hot flashes and night sweats, trouble sleeping, painful sex, vaginal dryness and libido changes, weight and body changes, brain fog and memory lapses, moodiness, anxiety and depression, period problems, hair and skin changes, and more. Booking a virtual visit is fast and easy. There are no membership fees, no hidden costs, just specialized care covered by major insurance providers. And if you're out of network or uninsured, there are affordable cash options too. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does without me lifting a finger, so I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
All right, we're back. We are coming around the circle. This is part 3. As I was saying, for years I kept saying I feel like I can't land the plane. And I would say like I need some sort of exorcism to land this plane. I was saying that back in like 2019 before I had even considered doing psychedelic therapy. It was as if I knew that the solution to this problem that I was facing, this anxiousness that I was feeling, the feeling like there was a loop that wasn't closed, I knew that it was subconscious because it's like, God damn it, like I am a smart lady. I do this for a living. If I could figure it out, I would have by now. I have interviewed hundreds of guests. And what is it? So here's when the breakthrough came. The breakthrough came when I finally accepted that the past played out exactly as it needed to. There was never going to be a different ending. Again, like this seems so obvious, right? Like it's like, well, of course, I understand that there was no different. We don't have time machines. We can't go back in time to change what happened in the past. But again, as I'm telling you, like there was a subconscious part of me that was like holding out, who was going to wait until the cows came home, until we had a different ending, and was going to dedicate its life to figuring out how we can get this different ending. And so the real work wasn't about trying to quote unquote, let it go in the way I had imagined. It was about radical acceptance on every level that there was no other outcome. So you might be asking, like, is it just as easy as saying that you realize it? Like how do you actually integrate that? So it was this. The biggest shift happened when I moved into gratitude for my past partners. I mentioned this a little bit in last week's episode. When I stopped seeing them through the lens of what I didn't get, or how I was hurt, or the ways that they didn't show up, when I stopped looking at any potential that they had, that they may or may not get to in their lifetime, and instead, when I moved away from any kind of anger, which is hard, instead focused on what I learned from those relationships, what I learned about myself, what I learned about relationships in general, and what those relationships gave me as gifts, everything changed. My perspective cracked wide open. The handful of sessions, of ketamine therapy sessions that I had, and apparently this is common when people do psychedelics, even if they're doing them recreationally, you might hear people saying, especially when they do psilocybin or ayahuasca, that they quote unquote have conversations with God. Again, because you're able to tap into this different part of your brain. And I truly think that it's not just that. I think you are able to open up to a different timeline, reality, energy force, whatever you want to call it. But my perspective cracked wide open when I realized, oh, I am love. I am made of love. And before you're over there listening, rolling your eyes, because I sure as shit would be if I was listening to this, I'd be like, what the fuck is she talking about? Like, that's wow. I don't know. Some of you might be like, yeah, totally. I totally get it. Here's how I saw it and think about it. On the other side, now that I'm lucid, this is how I see it now, is that the universe is fucking expansive, right? We know this. Science tells us that it's huge. It goes on forever and ever. And I grew up going to church where it's Christianity. I grew up Lutheran, where it was like, there's God and there's Jesus, and Jesus is God's son. And this is who is the sky daddy, right? I went through a spiritual transition many years ago and was kind of like, the emoji with like the palms up, like, I don't know, like shrugging. Kind of didn't know what it was that I believed in, but I knew it wasn't what I had grown up being taught. That didn't resonate with me anymore. It didn't feel right to me. And so fast forward many years, what I have come to realize is, and this is around the time that I got sober and was part of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they talk about a God to, in our understanding. And I was like, what is that for me? And here's how I would explain it. And I would say, there are some things that are so much bigger than me, like my addiction, like my recovery. They're like love, like, and what I meant by that is like that have the energy that is bigger than me. This is beyond me. This is beyond my control or even recognition. What is that thing? Is that God? Is that the universe? I think so. It's what I would identify that as. At this time in my life, what I have come to realize is that thing is love. That's it. It's that simple. And I'm not just talking about romantic love. It's energy. It's the energy of love. You can even say the experience of love. That's what the universe is made of. And when I realized, oh, that's my life purpose. That's it. My life purpose is not in a job or a role or anything like that. My life purpose is to continue to grow and evolve, to become the person I was meant to be. The North Star of that, the map, is love. That's it. My life purpose is to love others and love myself. I do think it would be another podcast for another time. Maybe it's a mini-sode around what that actually looks like. But if I had to summarize it, I would explain it as a softening into that. I have spent most of my life pushing in order to find love, in order to keep love. And I realized that what it comes down to really is surrendering to it, and also being open to receiving, which is a whole different animal. There's giving love and there's receiving love. And these are two different conversations, again, for another time. But if you're still with me, I want to go back quickly and talk about the gratitude thing, because I think that where people might want to shut this conversation down is around any relationship that you might have where you were egregiously hurt by someone else. And I want to acknowledge that, because that happens. I have been egregiously hurt by other people, and I don't take that lightly. I think real trauma can come from that, and it's never okay. It's never okay. And so moving into a place of gratitude for other partners never looks like accepting that what they did was okay. What it might look like is the radical acceptance that it happened to you, the understanding that you did not deserve what happened to you. And sort of a baby step in that direction might be getting to a place where you can have gratitude for the version of yourself that was able to be resilient in this case. So I think that can be a good starting point. And also, you can still do this work, and for the time being, in the beginning, just put aside any relationships that were incredibly hurtful. So could you have gratitude for any other relationships that you had? Maybe they were family relationships, relationships that you have with your siblings that may have been contentious, or even friends. I also want to mention that this isn't a perfect process. It's by no means linear. And I'm just in the beginning of getting to this sort of perspective around love in general, but also love and relationships, because I still have moments of fear around love for sure. And one of the tools I use is curiosity. So I'll kind of paint a picture of what this looks like. So when I get into those places, I call them when I get wobbly or when I get squirrely. One of the things that I know is I pay attention to my own physiology, like what is happening in my body. And then it's a red flag. It's a red flag on the play. I know that something is going on, that I am immediately dropping into a narrative, a past narrative, a story that I know well, that is conflict, that is, possible abandonment, really. Like I planned that funeral within 10 seconds. And so the first thing is like, I know when I'm in it because of what's happening to my body and then my thoughts. And I realize sometimes more clearly than others that my inner child has come out to drive the bus 100%. And if I am in conflict with someone else and I can tell that they're also getting wobbly and squirrely, I realize that our inner children are having a conversation at this point, that our true, wisest selves has probably left the building. So I realize that, and I do my best to drop into curiosity instead of control. When I feel myself jumping to worst case scenario or bracing for impact, because that's what I do. And by bracing for impact, that is where I am planning an escape. I am not showing up as my best self. I might get passive aggressive. I start to not listen because I'm planning out my responses, my protective responses. I mean, I don't know what this person's going to say. Bracing for impact is also where I get very close-minded. And so I do my best to switch to curiosity. And so that looks like asking questions for clarity, asking questions like, especially like when you feel like you've gotten off track with a hard conversation, you can say, what is our goal here in this conversation? Where are you trying to go? I'll tell you where I'm trying to go. Like, can we back up like 10 steps and tell each other what is your goal in this conversation? Can you clarify that for me? It can be a total game changer. I talked about that a little bit last week, that I've been practicing that in my new relationship with Dr. Fox, and it's been a game changer so far. And I do think that you can, if you're in a long-term relationship, an existing long-term relationship, I do think this can absolutely be something that you implement. But that's a way to move away from fear and more into love when you're having that hard conversation. All right, part 4, my friends. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the power of radical acceptance. And where I went was through this particular therapy, I shifted from holding on to fear and anger. Those were the predominant experiences and feelings that I had around love, into gratitude for what love had given me so far in my life. And the thing about love too is that it's a huge risk to love others and allow yourself to receive love from them, because it's inherently vulnerable. Love involves connection with another human being and wild emotions. It is so vulnerable. And so the only way to fully give and receive love is to trust, because pain is inevitable. I will get hurt again. I know this for a fact. love is going to come for me. I don't know when and I don't know who, but I guarantee you I will get hurt again. It's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. But now I can walk in with a different perspective and have a different experience when I walk through the door of love because I trust myself to be able to navigate it. I know that I will be whole. I know that I will be a whole ass human being who is made of love already. And that I trust my own resilience because that is the key. The trust and the resilience is key. This is what the radical acceptance was about. I had spent so much time trying to avoid pain when what I really needed to do was strengthen my resilience. I needed to trust that no matter what happened, I could handle it. I could bet on myself in that way. Because by trusting myself and my own resilience, I was actually trusting love itself. Another thing I realized is that love isn't something to control or fear, which is what I spent most of my life doing in some form or another. Love isn't something to control or fear. It's something to flow with. Love is fluid. It's flowing all the time because it's energy. It's something to flow with, knowing I will always catch myself if I fall. It's not up to anybody else to catch me. Sometimes it's great to have support from friends and things like that, but at the end of the day, it's you. It's you. All right, we need to take one more ad break. And when we come back, part 5, I'm going to summarize everything and ask you a very important question that you can take with you throughout your day to think about. We'll be right back.
Uh-oh, the last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
So now that I had this spiritual awakening, no, I'm not going to go join a cult and wear a white robe and change my name to something weird and change everything I teach. But the one thing is that this realization, this sort of cycle that I realized I had been in, especially when it comes to romantic love, has completely changed the way I approach love now. And not just in my new relationship with Dr. Fox, but in all my relationships. One of those things is I don't need to hold on to love so tightly anymore. I don't need to brace myself for impact. I know that love flows. It's an energy. It flows. It's going to come in and out of my life. And I know that while it does that, I am safe. Because essentially, that's what's happening. My nervous system has flagged that as an unsafe, too vulnerable, changes too much, cannot predict. Healing my nervous system has looked like radical acceptance, surrendering to the fact that love is an energy that flows. It is not linear at all. And no matter what, I am safe. The other realization, again, to summarize, is I trust myself to catch myself. Love isn't something I have to grasp at and cling to and sort of like hold on so tightly that makes me behave in ways that I don't recognize and that are not my best self. Love is something that moves through me, and knowing that I am always whole, I'm always complete, I'm always enough. I've landed the plane, essentially. So a question for you. And again, there's a worksheet on this to help you look at how this is playing out in your life and see if you can maybe come to have some aha moments. It's in the show notes or AndreaOwen.com/665. Regardless if you do the worksheet or not, I want to leave you with this question. And that is, what love stories are you still holding on to? Not the details of the stories of love in your life, any love in your life, but the narratives of what love is, what love means to you, what love will bring you. And then a second part to that question is, where do you need to trust yourself more? So what love stories are you still holding on to that are impacting you now in ways that you would like to change? And where do you need to trust yourself more when it comes to love? Thank you for listening and for going with me on this walk in a big circle on another lesson of coming home to yourself. And also don't forget, if you want to be the first to be notified around the How to Stop Feeling Like Shit coaching program, AndreaOwen.com/habits. And remember, it's our life journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I would be so incredibly grateful if you haven't done so already, if you could leave a review of this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Super easy if you already listen to your shows over there. But if you don't, or maybe you have the app on your phone, but you listen to the show on a different app, if you could leave a review for this show, it matters so much. I wish I could express how much it matters. I also wish that it didn't matter so much, but alas, it does. So if you haven't already, please go review and rate the show. It would mean so much to me. And thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing day.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.